Yes, and we are live. How we doing, people? Good to see you, although I can't see you, and you at this point can't see me either. So that's a bit of a silly thing to say, but you know what I mean. How you doing? All is well. Bit of an impromptu stream, just jumping in. Found myself with a few hours off from my usual duties, so I thought I would jump in on this topic. Oh, it's one of them topics. I've always had an interest in it. And yes, peeps, Rob had actually sent me a clip, which kind of whet my appetite the other day. And then this article just popped in when I was looking through headlines earlier today. Now, this is something that had happened on the 17th of May. So it's a couple of weeks ago that this, all what we're going to see today, actually transpired. And it's probably, you could describe it as political legitimacy on the UFO argument. But let's face it, what we'll see is a room full of people that know a lot more than they're letting on, but they're just trying to play it out for people, and we kind of know that. But anyway, guys, welcome along. Welcome along. A big hi and thank you to Katie Jane Swallow as well, and a much belated birthday to you. I did actually wish you happy birthday on your birthday, but this is the first online happy birthday. It was last week, I do believe. Hope you had a fantastic day, a nice one. A year older, a year wiser, they say. So anyway, let's get going with this, guys. Red Pill Phil, childrensmatter.news.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with you. You don't know what it is, but it's there. Like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me.
Red pill, Phil. Yes, peeps. And firstly, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who's donated towards the bike ride, which I'll be doing on the 24th of June to Hull from Manchester. Big thank you. We're just over the target that was put out for the Hull Against Grooming, United Hull Against Grooming, rather. The target was £200. We've hit just over that. If anyone could donate, there's another link out there for another great cause, Ethan's journey to recovery. I spoke to Donna all about that on this channel. You all have a gist of what it's about. If you would like to support in any way, there will be a link put in the description after this little piece for anyone to donate. If not, that's no problem. Thank you very much for your time. Please share and like if you can. So, right. Firstly, I'm going to play a little clip. You may have seen it. It's a clip that I was sent by Rob. Big up, Rob, our good old wizard. Let me try and get it here. It's well, whether it's Photoshop, whether it's original, it's hard to decipher, but it does beg the question that there is more going on. And to attribute it always to black ops and technology that is basically done by foreign enemies is probably a bit disrespectful to the intelligence of a lot of people, a lot of civilians who look at this intensely and would totally disagree with that, although they will agree there will be projects going on all over the world done by multifaceted governments and organisations, and some of it clandestine, some of it not so clandestine. So whilst appreciating that, that doesn't discount the fact that the technology that we're looking at and for the length of time it's been going on. So this is a clip that I got sent off our Rob. Thanks, Rob. It wasn't sent to me in terms of playing it. I just wet my juices and thought I'd play it. So here we go. interesting clip. Whether it's totally verified, couldn't tell you what country of origin that jet was from, couldn't tell you whereabouts that was, so it would need more information. USOs, there's a lot of research gone into that. There's a lot of legitimacy to the points when you look into it. Whether this is an original clip, I can't honestly say. It looks the part, without a doubt. I know the technology with CGI nowadays, but still. And many people will say, well, if the government are now giving it legitimacy, they're trying to kind of pull the wool over our eyes again. That could be an argument that could be worth talking about. However, let's face it, disclosure on this subject has been long overdue. So this is the quagmire that I find myself in, although I have one eye thinking, not to say that they're going to throw a hologram out and fool the rest of us in that way, although people have discussed that, doesn't necessarily mean it has to go all the way to the act. But I have to also keep in mind that this is such a legitimate, strong argument that eventually it's going to come out anyway. So maybe this is it also. So it's like stuck between a rock and a hard place. But anyway, what I've got, I actually looked up the actual event, Congress talking about it. It goes on for quite a long time. I'm not sure how long of it I will be playing, but I'll try and get through as much of it as quickly as possible, yeah? So let's proceed with this. If you're interested, if you're not, I guess you're going to go anyway. So it is one of them. It's a subject that does interest me. UFOs, but they now seem to want to call them U.A.Ps, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. I don't know why they've changed the semantics on it all, but hey ho, that's where we're at. So you will hear that reference over and over again. So here we go, the beginnings of the committee meeting on UAPs.
More than 50 years ago, the U.S. government ended Project Blue Book, an effort to catalog and understand sightings of objects in the air that could not otherwise be explained. For more than 20 years, that project had treated unidentified anomalies in our airspace as a national security threat to be monitored and investigated. In 2017, we learned for the first time that the Department of Defense had quietly restarted a similar organization tracking what we now call unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. Last year, Congress rewrote the charter for that organization, now called the Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, or AIM-SOG. For short, today we will bring that organization out of the shadows. This hearing and oversight work has a simple idea at its core. Unidentified aerial phenomena are a potential national security threat, and they need to be treated that way. For too long, the stigma associated with UAPs has gotten in the way of good intelligence analysis. Pilots avoided reporting or were laughed at when they did. DoD officials relegated the issue to the back room or swept it under the rug entirely, fearful of a skeptical national security community. Today, we know better. UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real. They need to be investigated, and many threats they pose need to be mitigated. Undersecretary Moultrie, Mr. Bray, thank you for coming today. First, we need you to update us on the status of AIM-SOG. The legislation creating it was passed in December. The deadline for implementation is fast approaching, but the group does not even have a named director. We need to know, sirs, the status of the organization and the obstacle to getting it up and running. Secondly, you have to convince the audience today, and most especially our military and civilian aviators, the culture has changed. That those who report UAPs will be treated as witnesses, not as kooks. Thirdly, you need to show us, Congress, and the American public whose imaginations you have captured. You are willing to follow the facts where they lead. You know, we fear sometimes that the DoD is focused more on emphasizing what it can explain, not investigating what it can't. I'm looking for you to assure us today that all conclusions are on the table. One final note, we are mindful today that AIMSOG is not starting from scratch. This is the third version of this task force in DoD, and civil society groups like the Mutual U.F.O Network, Mr. Corbell and others have been collecting data on this issue for years.
Now, this is what's significant. Hi, if you've just jumped on, hi guys, like, love, share, please. Thank you very much for your engagement here at this point. We're talking about UAPs, it's formerly known as U.F.Os. But they've mentioned MUFON there. Now, MUFON is, as people will know if you've been into this field, is a grassroots organization that was scuffed at by these said organizations. So now they're being mentioned in Congress. That is progression, although, is it natural progression? You know, I don't want to put any conspiracy theory here, but I do regard the fact that they've just mentioned MUFON and the serious work that they do here on this now. So let's get back to it.
I hope you'll explain how you can leverage the knowledge and experience of our prior work on this matter to move the AIMSOG along. The last time Congress had a hearing on UAPs was half a century ago. I hope that it does not take 50 more years for Congress to hold another, because transparency is desperately needed. I now turn to Ranking Member Crawford for comments he'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Moultrie, Mr. Bray, thank you for coming here today. We appreciate it. To begin the open dialogue between Congress and the executive branch on this important topic. While this topic evokes creative imaginations of many, aside from all the hype and speculation, there are important underlying issues posed by UAPs. Despite the serious nature of this topic, I have to say I'm more interested in our understanding of Chinese and Russian hypersonic weapon development, or understanding why this administration was so slow to share actionable intelligence with the Ukrainians. However, inasmuch as this topic may help us better understand unknown activities of Russia and China, I am on board. The intelligence community has a serious duty to our taxpayers to prevent potential adversaries such as China and Russia from surprising us with unforeseen new technologies. As overseers of the intelligence community, this committee has an obligation to understand what you are doing to determine whether any UAPs are new technologies or not. And if they are, where are they coming from? In general, the IC spends much of its time and resources trying to understand what we call known unknowns. When it comes to foreign nations' weapons systems and sensors, known unknowns are those features that we don't fully understand yet. The challenge associated with UAP is that they are completely unknown and require a more expansive collection and analysis effort.
Are you buying that? And yes, Crown Jewels, how you doing, mate? I have listened to William Cooper extensively over the years. Not so much, I know he's no longer with us, but he spoke about this and how the different facets and how it all could link together. Bob Lazar is another one that was not taken seriously back then, but now you can see that he's got some legitimacy. Even some elements of what Phil Snyder, if I got his name right, what he was talking about, he was definitely ridiculized back in the day for the story, the tale he come out with, subterranean stuff going on. I've listened to all these folks. I've watched a lot of different documentaries. I've listened to very many eminent people talking about this and gaining proper UFOlogists, you know, on this subject. It's fascinating, dude. I absolutely love it. What I will say about this clip, the way that they want to mitigate the fact that alien technology, so far with the way this guy's coming, he's trying to explain every other phenomenon, but not going anywhere near the fact that this could be actually coming from somewhere else, or a multi-dimensional thing, you know, and they talk about analysis. They talk also about the fact that they need more and more data. How many sightings have we had over the years? How many clandestine operations have been going on over the years? How many photographs, how many videos, how much testimony from people? I mean, they've had decades of this shit, so they're kind of starting from a blank canvas, are they, right now? I mean, is this what we're talking about here? I mean, it's like the 3, 4, maybe 5, 6, 7 decades behind here if there's now saying, well, there's not enough data to collate it, and if we're not going to put into the mix that we are talking about other things that may not be black budget, you know, where did black budget get its idea from? Where did that technology possibly come from? How far ahead are they? And then in terms of the technology that has been acknowledged by governments, particularly the American government, that they have retrieved back and back engineered alien technology. So now where does the black budget come from? You know what I'm saying? This is where it expands our capabilities here.
The intelligence community must balance addressing known threats to our national security with preventing technical surprise. We must continue to follow the facts where they lead us and ensure that there are no technical surprises. The IC must take it seriously when there are credible observations of phenomena that seem to perform in ways that could pose a threat to safe flight operations, or that could be signs of a foreign adversary's attempt to develop a strategic technological surprise against the United States. It's also essential that our pilots and others feel they can report UAPs they observe without any stigma for doing so. This is the open, unclassified portion of our hearing. We'll have a closed, classified part later. It's important for the public to know that the classification of information exists to protect national security, not to try to hide the truth. When we're trying to determine if any UAPs are new technologies being developed by foreign governments, we are inevitably going to run into classified information about what new systems and technologies we do know are in the works here or abroad. But where information does not risk national security, it should be shared with our allies and the public when feasible. I hope that we can have your assurance to this end today. It's my hope that the intelligence community will continue to try to determine the nature of UAPs we've observed and will keep Congress fully apprised of all developments. I look forward to this hearing and continued dialogue and oversight with the intelligence community on this topic. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and now we'll turn to our distinguished chairman, Adam Schiff, for any comments he wishes to make.
Thank you, Chairman Carson, for holding this open hearing on unidentified aerial phenomenon and for your leadership on this issue. Holding a portion of our discussion today in open session is critical to the cause of transparency and openness, which was Congress's intent in authorizing and funding this new task force. The larger effort that is being undertaken to study and characterize UAP reports is an important step towards understanding these phenomenon, what we know and don't know. And I look forward to hearing more during both the open session and the closed setting about how DOD and the IC are undertaking that task.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Crown Jewels, because we know from previous experience, don't we? We know how they play things. And one thing again, look at this room, Congress, the eminent dignitaries that are in there. They all know more than they're letting on. Now, they can talk about classified. Classified is a good way of not talking about serious shit that the public could do with knowing about. You know, they're talking about having a classified briefing after this. So there's going to be more additional information. And I get it. I totally get it. We're at a trust level of 0 with, even if you've got eminent people. I mean, this guy is a straight up guy from what I've heard, Mr. Schiff. He spoke honestly about this, and he's got very much rationale. He wants to get to the information, but I'm sure he knows more than he's letting on as well. So this all of a sudden becomes very political, very pyramidic. So you can't speak above your level. You can't speak the truth, in other words. So this could be another element where, is this just a smokescreen? Is this just like you're putting on a show just to kind of show people that you're trying to address it? You want to see some serious meat and bones. You want to see some serious testimony, because this has been too long in the making. You know what I mean? We've all the technological prowess that we have now in terms of getting the data that these guys so much crave. I mean, look at it this way: they can surveil our asses from space. So don't tell me that you're not doing, a grand enough job of actually surveilling, getting proper, true data, true footage. from the plateau, the view of the plateau, as in below and above atmosphere. They have got the technology, they've got enough shit floating about up there, so there should be more. Why are they not telling us more? This is why I said it before. Do they really want to know? Or if they know, do they want us to know truly what the bigger question is on this? When you look at it like that, where we're at on a pyramid level, we're right in the very corner. We're not even stood up yet when it comes to actually getting to the roof of the first level. That's how behind the public is in terms of open knowledge we can then take forward. Tell us the truth. How they've got here, what's it all about? Where did this technology come from? Where do we come from? Does that have anything to do with this argument? In terms of technological prowess, how far ahead are this technology, you know, in terms of the black budget and in terms of if this is alien craft? What are we talking about? They'll certainly have more data, they'll certainly have more papers when they've analysed this stuff, but they're not coming to the table with it yet, Crown Jewels. And I get you, and this is what's frustrating, because we're ahead of the line. We know there's more. We know the shit that we can't explain, and there's crap that they can't explain. So don't throw it under national security or any other tag or title to disable you from talking about this. Sorry for ranting.
U.A.P. reports have been around for decades, and yet we haven't had an orderly way for them to be reported without stigma and to be investigated. That needs to change. U.A.P. reports need to be understood as a national security matter, and that message needs to go out across DoD, the IC, and the whole of the U.S. government. When we spot something we don't understand or can't identify in our airspace, it's the job of those we entrust with our national security to investigate and to report back. That is why it's important that we hold this open hearing for the public to hear directly from the Department of Defense on the steps it's taking to track, analyze, and transparently communicate the work that is being done on this issue. It is also the responsibility of our government and this panel to share as much as we can with the American people, since excessive secrecy only breeds distrust and speculation. I look forward to hearing how the U.A.P. task force is being stood up, what challenges they still face, and how this committee can make sure the task force is able to shed light on one of the world's most enduring mysteries. I thank you gentlemen for your work, and be very interested to hear what you have to say. To me, among the most fascinating questions are these phenomena that we can measure. That is, instruments report there is something there. It is not the human eye confusing objects in the sky. There is something there, measurable by multiple instruments, and yet it seems to move in directions that are inconsistent with what we know of physics or science more broadly. And that to me poses questions of tremendous interest and as well as potential national security significance.
You're right there, Mr. Schiff. I mean, let's look at it this way. You've had reports of ships doing miraculous angles which defy the laws of gravity, traveling in excess of up to speeds of 26,000 miles an hour, and then turning on a dime and coming back on itself to a dead stop. Are they remotely guided? Are they intelligently guided? What if I go on if? So what do we do? Do we put that down? How do you categorize that? That's far beyond anyone's capabilities. How much money do you pump to get technology that can do that? And if that is the case, why in a fraction of that technology actually being used to the betterment of humanity, wherever this source come from? Crazy shizzle. What have we just done there? There we go.
Of tremendous interest and as well as potential national security significance. So we look forward to hearing what you're able to report to us today in open session, and I want to thank Chairman Carson again for his extraordinary leadership on this issue, and I yield back.
Chairman yields back. Thank you. With that, we will start our hearing. Under Secretary Moultrie, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Schiff, Committee Chairman Carson, Ranking Member Crawford, distinguished members of the subcommittee, it's a privilege to be here with you today to address your questions regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon, or UAP. I'm pleased to be joined by Mr. Scott Bray, the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, who will speak to the Navy's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, which laid the foundation for the efforts we will discuss today. First, I'd like to thank Congress for supporting the Department's UAP efforts. The NDAA for fiscal year 2022 has helped us to establish a dedicated office to oversee processes and procedures for the timely collection, processing, analysis, and reporting of UAP-related data. What are UAP? Put simply, UAP are airborne objects that, when encountered, cannot be immediately identified. However, it is the Department's contention that by combining appropriately structured, collected data with rigorous scientific analysis, any object that we encounter can likely be isolated, characterized, identified, and if necessary, mitigated. We know that our service members have encountered unidentified aerial phenomena, and because UAPs pose potential flight safety and general security risk, we are committed to a focused effort to determine their origins. Our effort will include the thorough examination of adversarial platforms and potential breakthrough technologies, U.S. government or commercial platforms, allied or partner systems, and other natural phenomena.
Yeah, everything but extraterrestrial. You know what I mean? And this is where I'm kind of disillusioned with this, because you're still at this point not even putting that on the table. Could this be alien life form? The carved cave paintings that we've seen over eons, I know they can't be regarded as full documentative proof because of the origin and how it could have been interpreted and all the rest of it. The oodles of footage that you've seen, and even stuff that has been seen out of space, I mean, is none of that. Are we not going to talk about the fact that this could be alien based? I'm not saying it has to be. You can mitigate it off with maybe a lot of what he's mentioned there. I'm not trying to discount any of that. But he run through every one of them, and at no point did he put that on the table that that could be. So where do we go with that if you're not going to acknowledge that there could be other technologies, other civilizations out there that are far superior or far inferior? But either way, other life forms. And that could be a possible explanation as to what we're seeing and what we've been seeing for decades. Never mind all the dramatized crashes and sensationalized crash sites that we've heard over the years, the retrievals and the bases and all the clandestine stuff again.
We also understand that there has been a cultural stigma surrounding UAP. Our goal is to eliminate the stigma by fully incorporating our operators and mission personnel into a standardized data gathering process. We believe that making UAP reporting a mission imperative will be instrumental to the effort's success. The Defense Intelligence and Security Enterprise provides real-time support to our warfighters and mission personnel across all domains. To optimize the department's UAP work, we are establishing an office within the Office of the Secretary of Defense. That office's function is clear: to facilitate the identification of previously unknown or unidentified airborne objects in a methodical, logical, and standardized manner. These goals will ensure that we are working closely with operational personnel on training and reporting requirements, developing data and intelligence requirements, standardizing and integrating processes and procedures for collection, operational surveillance, analysis, and reporting, leveraging our research and development capabilities to improve detection, characterization, and identification of UAPs, developing mitigating solutions and procedures, and identifying strategy and policy solutions. This effort will maximize collaboration and build upon already existing relationships with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the FAA, DHS, and the FBI. We are also committed to strong partnerships with the Department of Energy, NOAA, the DEA, NASA, and the national labs, and just as importantly, our international partners and allies. With regard to the importance of transparency, the Department is fully committed to the principle of openness and accountability to the American people. However, we are also mindful of our obligation to protect sensitive sources and methods. Our goal is to strike that delicate balance, one that enables us to maintain the public's trust while preserving those capabilities that are vital to the support of our service personnel.
What if they come across an object that then crashed? Once they back engineered it, they realized the technology in it is 2,000-3,000 years ahead of ours. What if they realize it come from a star system that is an impossibility for us mere mortals to reach? Would they relay that information? Would that be a prerogative? And this is what you want to know. I want to know, even if it's a black budget, I want to know the end game if these black budget ships, because if all these sightings that are supposedly black budget, then what are they getting fucking used for? I mean, what, delivery? I mean, it's the probably only viable thing to fucking use it for now. What, Amazon buying them or something? Because they only seem to be black budget flying around. So that, to me, doesn't make sense. There's got to be some kind of military application, or is that already happening? And in terms of alien visitation, are we then to take it by this, that there's been no alien visitation of any kind? There's been none that have crash landed, and there's been none maybe still here for whatever reason. Could be many reasons. Are we to assume that that's not even a thing?
In closing, the Department is committed to this effort and welcomes the challenge. We thank you for your committed support and look forward to your questions.
Chairman Schiff, Chairman Carson, Ranking Member Crawford, and committee members, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today to highlight the ongoing work of the Department of Defense regarding unidentified aerial phenomena. Since the early 2000s, we have seen an increasing number of unauthorized and or unidentified aircraft or objects in military-controlled training areas and training ranges and other designated airspace. Reports of sightings are frequent and continuing. We attribute this increase in reporting to a number of factors, including our work to destigmatize reporting, an increase in the number of new systems such as quadcopters and unmanned aerial systems that are in our airspace, identification of what we can classify as clutter, mylar balloons, and other types of air trash, and improvements in the capabilities of our various sensors to detect things in our airspace. Almost 2 years ago, in August of 2020, Deputy Secretary of Defense Nordquist directed the establishment of the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force within the Department of the Navy. The U.A.P. Task Force was built on the foundation of the Navy's initial efforts to respond to the reports from our aviators on unidentified objects observed in our training ranges. The basic issues then and now are twofold. First, incursions in our training ranges by unidentified objects represent serious hazards to safety of flight. In every aspect of naval aviation, safety of our air crews is paramount. Second, intrusions by unknown aircraft or objects pose potential threats to the security of our operations. Our aviators train as they would fight. So any intrusions that may compromise the security of our operations by revealing our capabilities, our tactics, techniques, or procedures are of great concern to the Navy and the Department of Defense. From the very beginning, we took these reports very seriously. We instituted a data-driven approach to the investigations where we could collect as much data as possible and use all available resources to analyze and make informed decisions on the best ways to address our findings. Our main objective was to transition U.A.P. efforts from an anecdotal or narrative-based approach to a rigorous science and technology, engineering-focused study.
This is where I can't argue with you, Crown Jewels. I am skeptical as F-U-C-K on this. I really am. I'm not trying to say, oh, look, guys, look, they're telling us the truth. I think there's something in it, but I'm not exacerbated with believing that anything that comes out of these mouths, you know, I totally understand. But I'm also knowing that it gives the option of them releasing information as well. I mean, one thing I'd like to know, he's data-driven. He wants all this information out there and he's not going to withhold it. There should be no stigma and all the rest of it. Remember that footage that the DOD actually did release a year or so ago? Remember the crazy maneuvers? Remember the tic-tac? Now, why haven't proper analytical, scientific, even biological studies done on them, and why has that information not been released to the public? They were admissions by these organizations. The reasons why they finally come out and shown that footage, I'm unclear about the whole situation. I was pretty surprised, actually, that for once they would actually release something like that. Imagine how many more bits of footage there is like that. So they've got the data. If he's talking, this is what I mean with this. This is talking like, from now we're going to do this. Well, what have you been doing? You've got footage. It's not all home footage where you can go, well, that's Venus, that's a drone, that's this. No, we're talking serious arse cockpit footage. So you're telling me you can't do this analysis? I mean, what you should be doing right now is giving us information of what you already know, biatches. So I get your Crown Jewels. I'm listening intently. But if this was a meal, certainly this is not satisfying me at any point now. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm absolutely starving and I've had my first course and I don't even feel it's touched the side yet. You know what I mean? Because it's not becoming to the reality that we have grown up as red pill people come to understand.
Data-driven approach requires input from a wide variety of sources. In the early stages, the task force worked to standardize the reporting mechanisms and processes to make it as easy as possible for personnel to report any engagement so that we were getting that wide range of reporting that we needed. We also spent considerable efforts engaging directly with our naval aviators and building relationships to help destigmatize the act of reporting sightings or encounters. And we worked with naval aviation leadership to provide additional equipment to record any encounter. Navy and Air Force crews now have step-by-step procedures for reporting on a UAP on their knee board in the cockpit and in their post-flight debrief procedures. The direct result of those efforts has been increased reporting with increased opportunities to focus a number of sensors on any objects. The message is now clear. If you see something, you need to report it. And the message has been received. In fact, recently, I received a call from a senior naval aviator with over 2,000 flight hours. He called me personally from the flight line after landing to talk about an encounter that he had just experienced. Those were just the initial steps. We also made a concerted effort to assemble subject matter experts from across the Department of Defense and the intelligence community and other U.S. government agencies and departments. We forged partnerships with the research, development, and acquisition communities, with industry partners, and with academic research labs, and we've brought many allies and international partners into our discussions on U.A.P. Additionally, subject matter experts from a wide variety of fields, including physics, optics, metallurgy, meteorology, just to name a few, have been brought in to expand our understanding in areas where we may not have organic expertise.
Crown Jewels, why has Britney Spears got anything to do with U.A.Ps? What story about the conservatorship? Or is it a new story, new scandal, new distraction? I don't know. Throw it in the comment section, bud. Let's see what go on here.
In short, we've endeavored to bring an all-hands-on-deck approach to better understand this phenomena. So what have we learned so far? Any given observation may be fleeting or longer. It may be recorded or not. It may be observable by one or multiple assets. In short, there's rarely an easy answer. For example, let me share with you the first video that we have here today, which shows an observation in real time. There it was. That's, in many cases, that's all that a report may include. And in many other cases, we have far less than this. As we detailed in both the unclassified and classified versions of the
So can you not slow films down nowadays? Have we not got that technology? Have we not got high definition cameras? I get what he's saying. That's a difficult, but but this is the one thing. At least they're showing something here. That's the only positive I'm getting from this. But if he's going to say, well, look at the quality of footage, this is what we get, so what do you expect us to do with that? Fucking look into it. How many millions get tossed over to that department on a yearly basis? And they're coming out now. So listen, sort it out. Look at this footage properly. Analyze it. Don't just say it's part of a fucking space capsule that's just re-entering. No one's having that. Serious?
preliminary assessment released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence last June, this often limited amount of high-quality data and reporting hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of U.A.P. As detailed in the ODNI report, if and when individual U.A.P. incidents are resolved, they likely fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, U.S. government or U.S. industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, or a other bin that allows for a holding bin of difficult cases and for the possibility of surprise and potential scientific discovery.
Yeah, that. Right at the bottom there. Right at the bottom. You know what I mean? So if someone reports now, you're driving past in your car, pitch black, something passes, you could be a pilot, you're just on your way home from your shift, you're driving home from the airport, you're coming to see your family, yeah? Everything's cool. All of a sudden, you see an object that flies right past you at such a rate where you could probably assess it being a trained professional. You then tell them that the maneuvers that they done was just off the chart, and I've never seen any aviation craft achieve their maneuvers. You then could tell him that it may have landed in a field just 2-3 miles away. You could then maybe tell him, as I was driving past, I did see certain things, possibly intelligent, leaving the craft. If you was to explain that to him, are they just going to sit you down and then report that legitimately? Or what I'm trying to say is, everything that this guy just covered didn't tick that box. You know what I'm saying? So with that box, that's the one that I'm looking at more than anything, really. And I'm not trying to say I've got a healthy or unhealthy bias towards everything being extraterrestrial based. But I do believe that we are, and we've come from much more than what they are telling us. I don't believe religions are key. I believe we're all one people, but I believe we've not come from what, creatures coming out of the water or something. You know, I do believe there's more to the story, and I do believe the expanse of what is out there explains a little bit of that as well. But these guys are not even contemplating that within this study. Right at the very back there, he said that.
We stand by those initial results. Since the release of that preliminary report, the U.A.P. Task Force database has now grown to contain approximately 400 reports. The stigma has been reduced. We've also made progress in resolving the character of a limited number of U.A.P. encounters. For example, let me show you a couple of another video and image taken years apart in different areas. In this video, U.S. Navy personnel recorded what appears to be triangles, some flashing, recorded several years ago, off the coast of the United States. This was recorded while the U.S. Navy ship observed a number of small unmanned aerial systems in the area. And importantly, the video was taken through night vision goggles with a single lens reflex camera. These remained unresolved for several years. Several years later, and off a different coast, U.S. Navy personnel, again in a swarm of unmanned aerial systems, and again through night vision goggles and an SLR camera, recorded this image. But this time, other U.S. Navy assets also observed unmanned aerial systems nearby. And we're now reasonably confident that these triangles correlate to unmanned aerial systems in the area. The triangular appearance is a result of light passing through the night vision goggles and then being recorded by an SLR camera. Now, I don't mean to suggest that everything that we observe is identifiable, but this is a great example of how it takes considerable.
I'll tell you what's great is that he's prepared to talk about things that he can explain. Why don't you show clips and talk about things that he can't explain and break them down scientifically and show exactly all the robust procedures that you've done to analyze it, and still you're thinking, what the fuck is this? You know, he's cherry picking.
Effort to understand what we're seeing in the examples that we are able to collect. In this example, we accumulated sufficient data from 2 similar encounters from 2 different time periods in 2 different geographic areas to help us draw these conclusions. That's not always the case, though. We recognize that that can be unsatisfying or insufficient in the eyes of many. This is a popular topic in our nation, with various theories as to what these objects may be and where they originate. By nature, we are all curious and we seek to understand the unknown. And as a lifelong intelligence professional, I'm impatient. I want immediate explanations for this as much as anyone else. However, understanding can take significant time and effort. It's why we've endeavored to concentrate on this data-driven process to derive fact-based results. And given the nature of our business, national defense, we've had to sometimes be less forthcoming with information in open forums than many would hope.
Go back again. There was a press release where they actually admitted to retrieving alien craft and back engineering it. So where's that accounted for within this? Why isn't he talking about this? This study of this phenomena has to have that in, does it not, as a sum?
If UAP do indeed represent a potential threat to our security, then the capabilities, systems, processes, and sources we use to observe, record, study, or analyze these phenomena need to be classified at appropriate levels. We do not want potential adversaries to know exactly what we're able to see or understand, or how we come to the conclusions we make. Therefore, public disclosures must be carefully considered on a case-by-case basis. So what's next? We're concentrating on a seamless transition to the new organization, and future analysis of complicated issues of UAP issues will greatly benefit from the infrastructure, the process, and the procedures that we've developed to date. I'm confident that the task force under Navy leadership has forged a path forward that will allow us to anchor assessments in science and engineering via anecdotal evidence. We remain committed to that goal, as I know the USDI organization does as well. So thank you very much for your interest and continuing support for the UAP task force. The team's made a lot of progress, but
U.A.P. task force. And you make a good point, Crown Jewels. You make a really good point. He's quick to say, well, you know, these two separate events in geological different locations, and also we can now extrapolate at this. But he's still never shown any proof. And let's go back to it. So we're all skeptical. We're all skeptical. But could we understand, comprehend the truth if it was told us as well? A lot of people don't want to believe that that is a possibility. It can't be. So then you've got some form of possible, if it's true, possible cognitive dissonance. Some people would have to see an alien come and sit down, pick up the remote control, and turn it over to Channel 4 when they were watching ITV. And then to maybe translate how, you know, this is my house now, biatch, through the medium of the mind before they would actually realize. Some people would have to have series of implants embedded within them and would have to have lost 9 hours of their time before they're going to believe it. Crazy how people need to be almost slapped in the face with it before they can even acknowledge it is a thing. And I'm not just talking about this here. I'm talking about pretty much every topic I've ever covered doing this crap from the moment it started. You know what I mean? Going on to grooming. Does your daughter have to be groomed for it to become a serious issue? Do you have to go through abuse in order for it to be a coffee table discussion where you're talking seriously about getting to the grips of who's really perpetrating this paedophilia and how big? You know, most of society just roll on here, the big case, get all sorry for it, throw a bit of money on it, feel better, and then just move on. Don't really sort shit out, does it? You still got the same players maneuvering, trafficking, doing whatever they're doing. Man. So do you want the truth as humans, you know?
we really are just establishing the foundation for the more detailed analysis that's yet to be done. And with your continued support, we can sustain that momentum necessary to produce data-centric analysis and understanding of the phenomena. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. This is the third version of this task force, and to be frank, one of Congress's concerns is that the executive branch and administration from both parties has been sweeping concerns about UAPs under the rug by focusing on events that can be explained and avoiding events that cannot be explained. What can you,
There you go. Boom. Boom. You know what I mean? And then that allays everyone. Oh, well, you know, that's it. Oh, well, it could be black budget. Oh, well, no, let's not think that it possibly could be something that's highly technological, that's clearly moving in and out of our airspace at will, or could be a multi-dimensional ship that can just come in and out. I don't know. I'm not suggesting any of them. I'm saying there's enough evidence, there's enough footage out there that could be analysed that comes into that category of unknown, what they don't talk about. And that's what this lovely bald-headed chap is talking about.
What can you say to give the American people confidence that you aren't just focusing our attention on low-hanging fruit with easy explanations.
Congressman, I'll start, and then Mr. Bray, please feel free to weigh in. So the way that we're approaching this is with a more thorough, standardized methodology than what we have in the past. First and foremost, the Secretary of Defense is chartering this effort. This is not someone lower in the Department of Defense. And he has assigned that task to the Office of Secretary of Defense, the Undersecretary for Intelligence and Security, that's me, because I'm responsible for looking at intelligence matters, I'm responsible for security matters. This is potentially both. So when you start concerning ourselves with the safety of our personnel, the safety of our installations and bases, there's no other higher priority than what we have than actually getting after this. And as you have stated, we have been assigned that task to actually stand up an office, the AIM-SOG, which I believe the name, sir, will likely change. But we have moved forward in terms of moving to establish that office. We have, as of this week, picked a director for that effort, very established and accomplished.
Oh man, this guy is, he's an eminent guy, innit? Just reeled off all the people who he's in cahoots with, and look, he's coming up with nothing. And what assurances? I love the way the other guy put it. I can't call him my lovely bald-headed guy now, because everyone, including me, has got a bald head now. The low-hanging fruit that is easily explainable. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the technology involved here. Are we really supposed to ultimately believe that Black Budget is capable of all this technology that we're possibly witnessing? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Individual. We've identified spaces, we've worked with personnel across the Department of Defense, with the services, and we've worked with the IC, which is on board and helping us work through this standardized methodology for now, bringing in data, analyzing that data, and reporting that data in the appropriate method and appropriate means so we can either get it to our service personnel to ensure their safety, or get it to you and the Congress and to the public to ensure that you have.
No, I totally get that any black ops on many different levels, Mr. Wrighton, is it? Yes, mate, welcome along. On many different levels are far ahead technologically of what we're currently at. And possibly what we're currently thinking of, if we all was to sit in this room now and conceive of ideas, they're probably done and tested and off. I get that. But don't forget, Black Ops has not always been here. Black Ops has not always been around. So the new resurgence of what is Black Ops is probably what, post Second World War. So of all the sightings, stories, testimonies of before that, we couldn't have possibly had any technology to do any of these maneuvers that have been spoke about way before. So that's my point to a degree, is that I don't always want to just go, yes, I know they could be working ahead, but let's not forget with what is actually could be witnessing at the moment with some of the maneuvers. Are they manned? Are they remote? Are we talking small ships? What does that say for possible sighting on motherships? Do they leave the stratosphere? Do they come back in? What is the purpose of them? Just to showcase them, to blag everyone that, So there's many questions, but ultimately to label them down as being responsible for the highest technology that we possibly could be witnesses, I think that's a little cheap. because there's other possibilities that could be explored as well. Whether they know it, I believe they do know it. I believe there's an element where they're not telling us everything. And it's not just black budget. Yeah, totally, dude. Totally. Many other civilizations. I mean, who knows? I mean, when you're talking about technologies of back then, who knows where it may have come from? How did they regard it? You only have to listen to 2 or 3 civilizations and they'll tell you exactly. But for some reason, that's not data. We can listen to documentary after documentary that will tell you. They'll show you pictures of them pointing in the stars. They'll show you pictures of their prowess with astrology, trigonometry, geometry. They were masters at mathematics. They truly believed and aligned. Now we're almost ignorant enough to pass all that off and understand that they're inferior beings to where we are now. And that, for me, is ridiculous. It's probably flipped. It's the other way round. We've yet to discover what was going on back then, truly, because we're still rewriting the books. We're now at what currently civilization possibly was around 15,000 years ago. So it's rewriting again and again and again. And we're still not talking about forbidding archaeology. The excavation finds that many archaeologists have found that are told to shut the frig up. That can't be true, even though they're tested and they've been determined that this site could possibly be hundreds of thousands of years old. So, dude, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. In many ways, this is lame as fuck. It's not touching the sides, because what I feel, what actually we're witnessing, and what possibly could be out there in terms of possibly other realms, who we are as individuals, man, these guys ain't covering it. All they're doing is just filling up space with useless words, knowing both them and us that they know a hell of a lot more. And I'll say again, hence the title, if they come across the true reality, would they then communicate that to the people? Don't know.
Oversight to what we're doing. So, chartered by the Secretary of Defense, standardized, and really a methodical approach. It's something that we're doing that has not been done before.
Can we get some kinds of assurances that your analysts will follow the facts where they lead and assess all hypotheses?
Absolutely. So we're open to all hypotheses. We're open to any conclusions that we may encounter.
Quickly, before I pass it to the ranking member and Chairman Schiff, I want to thank you both for taking the time, and I had a good time meeting with you last week, Director Moultrie, Undersecretary Moultrie. It's fair to say that you are a science fiction fan, is that correct?
It is fair to say that I am an inquisitive mind who has spent 40 years in the intelligence field and has focused on both science and science fiction. That is fair.
Could you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, look, my generation grew up looking at space sagas and the Apollo program. So all of us who grew up in the 60s were just thrilled by watching our first astronaut land on the moon. That was a momentous occasion. To people who were of different generations, some of them didn't believe that it happened. I still have relatives and friends who don't believe it happened, right? Science fiction to them. But to us, it was, no, that's the progress that we've made. And so I was enthralled by that, and I've taken that to heart. I enjoy the challenge of what may be out there. I have mentioned to you that, yes, I have followed science fiction. I have gone to conventions, even. I'll say it on the record. Got to break the ice somehow. But, I have done that, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. Don't necessarily dress up, but I do, I do believe that it's important to show that the Department of Defense has, we have character. And we're people just like you.
Just because he watches Star Wars, is that good enough here at this point? I'm kind of getting a little bit bored with this guy. I've got to admit, if there's one question I could ask these guys, right? Is there any truth to reports that there has been UAPs over military installations, which has resulted in the nuclear capabilities shortly paralyzed, switching off? Can there be any data or any reports to that having any truth? Or is that not a low hanging up fucking fruit? You know what I'm saying? Never mind how many freaking seasons of Star Wars or whether he can do it with his hand. I don't really care whether he goes to Comic-Con 4 times a year. We want to know if, what if, or go on if.
It's like the American people. We have our inquisitiveness. We have our questions. We want to know what's out there as much as you want to know what's out there. We get the questions not just from you, we get it from family members. And we get them night and day, not just in committee hearings. So finding what's out there is important, but first and foremost, it's important for us to do that so that we can ensure that our people, our personnel, our aviators, our bases and installations are safe. And then that curiosity factor is something else that we just want to know, because that's the human race. It's just, that insatiable desire to know.
Thank you, sir. Ranking Member Crawford.
Mr. Moultrie, you said you don't necessarily dress up. That wasn't.
Listen, at this point, if he dresses up, it's not in sci-fi gear, is it? Probably a nappy or maybe a rubber suit or something. I don't know. Only an allegation. I've got no proof at this point. I've got about as much proof that it's aliens. Get on that one. We need more data.
A real strong statement. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Moultrie, for breaking the ice the way you did. Appreciate that. The inability to understand objects in our sensitive operating areas is tantamount to an intelligence failure that we certainly want to avoid. This is not about finding alien spacecraft, but about delivering dominant intelligence across the tactical, operational, and strategic spectrum. So my question is, how can AIM-SOG lead to prevention of intelligence surprises?
Sure, I'll start with that. So the goal of our effort is to integrate it into what we already do on a normal basis, which is look for the unknowns, Congressman, as you stated in your opening remarks, across all domains. So we've been doing this for decades. We've been looking at the space domain, looking at space objects, looking at space weather, looking at space phenomenon. We've been looking at things in the air domain, and we, as you know, and I'll talk more about this in classified session, but we have a very concerted effort to understand adversarial platforms and adversarial developmental programs. And we do that also in the ground domain. And of course, we're very interested in what happens in the underwater or sea domain, if you will, subsurface domain. So if there are objects that our aviators or air crews are encountering in this air domain, and their sensors are discovering or detecting some of these objects, we want to just bring that in to the normal process that we have for identifying unknown unknowns. We want to make sure we have the intelligence requirements that allow us not only to look at that event from the time that it occurs forward, but maybe retrospectively, we want to go back and see if we can get to the left of that event to say, was there some developmental program that we, to get to your technical surprise issue, sir, that we should have known about? And if so, how do we put that intelligence requirement in place to ensure that we are following an adversarial development or any other development that may be out there? So that's.
And what if it's a green alien waving as it's passing? Have you got a box for that one as well? Seriously.
What we want to do in terms of normalizing this and bringing it into the normal process of how we identify unknown unknowns.
So you mentioned fidelity, and I think it's important to talk about the relationship from the Navy as the lead agency on this, how do you interact with Space Force, Air Force, to create that degree of fidelity? We're talking about sensors and so on, and I guess where I have some concerns that many of the images that we see commonly in this committee and even in open source, the resolution and the clarity that would allow a robust technical intelligence analysis is challenging. So is AIMSOG prepared to address the quality and quantity of data collected on UAP to advance intelligence collection? And do you have the adequate sensors you need to collect that high-quality data?
One of the lines of effort that we have is looking at our sensor capabilities and to understand whether or not, as the video showed that Mr. Bray displayed, sometimes it's very fleeting.
Okay. Like you say there, Dave, it's like saying, well, we haven't got capabilities. We're still on Atari here, dude. You know, we're not even in the 21st century yet. I mean, some of this footage is fleeting. It's fleeting. Yet, my friends, I could get up from my bed. Just imagine I decide to sleep in the buff. Okay? We have the technology that a camera from space would see me and my little vegetable bits flopping about whilst opening my curtains in the morning, okay? And it can get all the resolution there. When it comes to droning some poor motherfucker somewhere on this planet, they can certainly get the high def resolution there before they press the red button. But now, apparently, it's fleecing. We're being fleeced. The American public are being fleeced. Humanity is being goddamn fleeced.
Data that we have on some of these objects, and we want to make sure that, one, our systems are calibrated to actually be able to collect on the objects. You know, our sensors today they're calibrated for specific things. We want to make sure they're calibrated for things of this nature, things of this size, things of this velocity, if I can use that term. We want to make sure that once we have that data is stored in some standardized method that we can then extract and that we can feed into our system real time. So we do not want this to take some prolonged period of time for us to get that data. But our goal is absolutely to have that high fidelity information that we get from all sensors. And
our goal seems to be to extrapolate as much money and get it from all the people and then just blag them for the next 20, 30 years until the point we want to tell them. And then we tell them in a narrative that is juicy, tasteable, and nutritious for us, where we gain control from the people. Is that where we're at with this? Because all this that he's talking about here, they should have actually done, shouldn't they? Like I say, they've got the technology to look at anyone, anywhere, with anything. Seriously? With the spider spy grid that we currently live under? You try to tell us? Or are you trying to now tout for more expenditure? For more money? For what?
we want to be able to integrate that with what we may have off of ground-based sensors. So whatever we may have on a platform, whatever we may have on the ground, whatever we may have from other sensors that we may have in different domains. We want to be able to integrate that all and get this integrated picture as we would, as I said, with any other unidentified objects or things that we are tracking as a part of our normal intelligence responsibilities.
Thank you. Last question, Mr. Bray, if you would. I'm a Navy pilot. I've encountered a U.A.P. Walk me through the reporting protocol once I see something that I think needs reported.
The first thing that aviator would do after landing as a part of their normal debriefing is they would contact their intelligence officer. Their intelligence officer would then walk them through first filing data preservation to ensure that that whatever sensor data may be on the aircraft, that we preserve that so that it's available for later analysis. Second, they would actually fill out a form that includes details like where they were operating, altitudes they were operating, speeds, what they observed, whatever sensor data they may have recorded from that. And then that report is filed. It goes two places. One, it goes through the operational chain of command, so that operational units are aware of what's being observed, and also to the U.A.P task force, so that they can take that data, database it, and quite often have individuals from the task force contact the aviator and ask them additional questions if there were things that weren't clear in the report. That then goes into a database where we begin to compare it with other observations that we have, again, comparing for locations, comparing for altitudes, speeds, shapes, if any RF emissions were detected from the platform, all of that, so that we can try to reach some conclusions on that.
Thank you. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chairman Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bray, can you rerun that first image that looked like it was outside of a plane window? And if you wouldn't mind going up to the screen and tell us what we're seeing. Not that you can necessarily tell us what we're seeing, but
Right.
Explain what we should be looking at in that first image.
Absolutely. And Alexi, what I'll ask is if you can stop it at a certain point.
And are we looking outside of a civilian aircraft window? Is that what we're looking at?
You're looking outside a U.S. Navy F-18.
Okay.
And it's great, shows how difficult the analysis is. Go just a little farther forward.
This is where lack of preparation, because let's face it, if they truly wanted to get to the bottom of that, as well as show that video, they should have had a still of it. You can provide a still. You have got a good enough department where you could analyze this footage, get a close-up still of it that is sharpened. You know what I mean? Now look at them. How much is this costing? How much time is it burning up? And you're going to find it very difficult now to get that still the way you want it, doing it via the computer in that way on the bar. I tell you now, because it does happen in an instant. You need at least a video editing system. I could throw that now into my video editor, and I could come back in 10 minutes and have a little still of that. That's how quick and easy. Now, the beauty would be in sharpening it up, getting the stability of it, getting the contrast right, so you could proper analyze the shape, and then from that, you can hopefully extrapolate the speed it was going, the direction, whether it was a straight line, what it was, if it had fucking windows, if it had a flag on it, whatever. You know what I mean? But you should be able to get something. But look at them now. They're acting like you can't organise a piss up in a brewery, and they're never going to get that actual screenshot. I might be wrong, but I don't think they will like this. So we're all just waiting for these now. I mean, look. It should have all been done. Listen about with this. They should have had the actual footage.
What you'll find eventually on this, when we find the right frame, is for literally about one frame here is a spherical object that passes right through here, passes right through there because the aircraft is moving pretty fast in this direction with the flyby of it. And it is a...
Is that it right there?
That is it. There we go, off in the distance.
Can you point to the screen again what we're supposed to be looking at?
Well, see what I mean? Hi, Mike. How you doing, pal? And I did, mate, thank you for your generosity. We have now reached the target. Thank you very much. Hull United against grooming reached the target, and my
Okay, if you could stop that frame. No, it's not the one.
look at him. I mean, this is borderline embarrassing. They try to convince us, but they can't even come up with a clip.
Alexei, just push play. Let's see if.
It's going to be too fast.
Here's what you'll see coming up right here. There it went. Now back.
Look at him. It's going to take him half an hour now to
object
when
right here.
bloody click it.
File window right in this area right there. There we go.
Is this what they do with billions of pounds? You know what I mean? Seriously? Does that show the intent of them not wanting to show what the image was? This is kind of backfiring in a big way on multiple levels. Well, thank you to whoever it was. Mike, how you doing, mate? God bless you. I know you're a star. But what? Let's just see what.
See that part right there again going by? I think we're having a hard time stopping it in the right spot.
Okay.
So as you can see, it's difficult, and I think a part of the issue here is
It's not difficult if you do it in a professional setting with professional equipment, you muppet. On a normal laptop, you're going to find it very difficult because it is very fast. No doubt, what's the speed? No one's asking the question, what's the current speed of that airplane that's traveling there? Now, that'd give you an idea, because if it's shot past at that fast, what's his speed? Is that a fighter jet or is it a commercial plane? You know what I'm saying? Let's see if they get onto that.
the laptop we're working with is not as easy for stopping that video in the right spot.
We'll describe what we have seen in that. What are we observing?
What you see here is aircraft that is operating in a U.S. Navy training range that has observed.
I can only thank you from the bottom of my heart, mate. Seriously, thank you so much. Thank you.
Spherical object in that area, and as they fly by it, they take a video. You see it looks reflective in this video, somewhat reflective, and it quickly passes by the cockpit of the aircraft.
And is this one of the phenomena that we can't explain?
I do not have an explanation for what this specific object is.
And is this one of the...
Oh, there you go, you muppet. You tried to put it back. Well, that could be anything. It could be space. Go and see what we've got to deal with. And look, that is the unknown of the unknown of the unknown. Look at the speed it shot past. Spherical. So it's probably not space junk then. Come on, sir. We're not as stupid as you think we are.
Situations where it is, that's the object that we're looking at right there? Thank you. And is this a situation where it was observed by the pilot and it was also recorded?
Oh, mate, bless you, bless you. Did you not have to go to the parlour maybe this week, mate? Sorry, did you have to cut your one of your outings to the parlour? Oh, mate, thank you very much, and thank you again to everybody who's donated. If you've liked, if you shared it, bless you. It's going to be coming up on the 24th, a ride from Manchester to Hull. I can't wait to do it, although it's getting serious.
Supported by the aircraft's instruments?
We'll talk about the multi-sensor part in a later session. But in this case, we have at least that.
In the Director of National Intelligence 2021 unclassified report, the ODNI reported 144 UAPs between 2004 and 2021, 80% of which were recorded on multiple instruments. And I take it, with respect to some of those, you had a pilot seeing them if it was observed by a pilot,
right,
and you had multiple instruments recording it. So you really have three sensors, the human sensor and two technical sensors detecting the object, is that?
For the majority of incidents that we had in the last year's report, the majority had multi-sensor data. When I talk about the 400 reports that we have now, that number will certainly go down because a lot of those new reports that we have are actually historic reports that are narrative-based. So that percentage will go down just as a factor of the fact that the destigmatization has resulted in more narrative reports.
And that's the object we're looking at right there now, right?
That's it right there.
Okay. Last year's report also said that of those 144, 18 of them reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics, appear to demonstrate advanced technology, and some of them appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. That's pretty intriguing. And if you're able to answer this in this setting, are we aware of any foreign adversary capable of moving objects without any discernible means of propulsion?
I think I would, without discernible means of propulsion, I would say that we're not aware of any adversary that can move an object without discernible means of propulsion.
That was an uncomfortable question, wasn't it? And the answer. So, what other option could we be putting on the table here? No one wants to say it. I know someone. Jason Bourne. Yes, Jason. Oh, shit. You know what? He's getting to the truth on this, whether you like him as an individual or his politics. I'm not sure geopolitically because I don't really watch him on that level, whether he's going to come out as someone who's going to blame it as technological. I think he's trying to get and supersede the idea that any foreign element hasn't got technology like this. And he's got an admission from this guy that from his experience, he doesn't know of any other foreign adversary that has technology like this. They'll know of all types of things. So that is something that is just slipped out there.
The question then becomes, in many of these cases where we don't have a discernible mean of propulsion in the data that we have, in some cases, there is likely sensor artifacts that may be hiding some of that. There's certainly some degree of something that looks like signature management that we have seen from some of these UAP, but I would caution. I would simply say that there are a number of events in which we do not have an explanation, and there are a small handful in which there are flight characteristics or signature management that we can't explain with the data that we have. We'll continue. Those are obviously the ones that are of most interest to us. Earlier, when we asked about how you avoid technological surprise, the biggest way you avoid technological surprise is by collecting this type of data and by, importantly, calibrating the assumptions that you go into with how you do that analysis. I'll tell you, within the UAP task force, we have one basic assumption, and that is that generally speaking, our sensors operate as designed. And we make that assumption because many times these are multi-sensor collections. We make no assumptions about the origin of this or that there may or may not be some sort of technology that we don't understand. That's, I think, the key to avoiding technological surprises by calibrating those assumptions.
He's just said in his admission that over 80% is kind of multi-sensitive and recorded. So if they generally work, then you've got a shitload of data there. And with this one element here, you can see he can't explain this one. So how many more are there? He's downplaying it again, in my opinion. Yes, Gerard. Yes, mate. Just as they're starting to slip up and they're kind of being put up to scrutiny on their questions now. Yes, certainly, mate. Hopefully you can catch up at a later date. Have a good one, mate. You take care.
And finally, with respect to the second two videos showing the small triangles, the hypothesis is that those are commercial drones that, because of the use of night vision goggles, appear like triangles. Is that the operating assessment?
Some type of drone, some type of unmanned aerial system, and it is simply that light source resolves itself through the night vision goggles onto the SLR camera as a triangle.
And have we, in order to prove that hypothesis, flown a drone and observed it with that same technology to see whether we can reproduce the effect?
The U.A.P. task force is aware of studies that have done that.
Okay.
So where is the study then? It's all right you standing there and nodding, because it doesn't come across here that you're prepared to provide any proof. You initially, you've had to have one of your teeth practically pulled out there just to admit that this possibly could be a drone. Now you try to convince people that you're aware of studies. What studies? And what were their conclusions, and where is their footage, so you can correlate it with this one and go, well, look, guys, you know, it looks 99% freaking same here, you know, so it could be more than what you might be thinking, but no, he's just giving us what he feels we should hear, and because of his supreme authority, we're just going to take it. And that national security bit, and you know, all this kind of multi-dimensional kind of organizations that all of a sudden becomes very black budget. You can't speak about it. Classified bullshit. Give us some data.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Dr. Winstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. My first question is, through this process where there's been sightings, have the sightings been stationary, or have they always been sighted from a moving object, from a plane or a ship that may be moving? Have these reports ever come from a stationary object being observed in the sky?
The U.A.P. task force does have reports from stationary, reports from a stationary observer.
Because there's a difference observing something when you're moving as
Right.
well. It's physics, right? So that's
Right.
why I asked that question. Are we capable, or have we made any breakthroughs, or anyone made any breakthroughs, to be able to cite something and make some determination at all of its composition, whether it's a solid or a gas? Is there any such capability?
From
Not asking what, I'm just...
Right. From some of the returns, I mean, it's clear that that the majority, well, it's clear that many of the observations we have are physical objects from the sensor data that we have.
Well, gas is physical, is a physical object. It can be, and so, and you see where I'm going with this. I'm trying to determine what it is we're looking at. So if we can decide if something is a solid or a gas, and if there have been any conclusion on its capabilities, like its capabilities of movement, of turning, going, you know, 180 degrees or 90-degree turn, anything along that line that we've been able to determine.
Within the, and again, I should point out that, you know, that there is not a single explanation for UAP. There are a lot of different things that are
All
unidentified
right,
aerial
so
phenomena.
basically, we really don't know much on that. That's all I'm trying to get at. And I'm pleased that you have protocol right now for our military.
I don't know whether I like this guy's style or not. I don't know whether he's absolutely great, he's exposing him and kind of just moving on, or whether he's kind of cross-examining him, but in a fumbled way, and he's just trying to go through the stages. I'm not sure. Because either way, he's bearing some fruits. He can't answer the questions, and he's just slipping right, just move on. Oh. Well, I'll probably give it another 10 or 15 more minutes, guys, and then I'm going to call it a day on this. I've been on here for just over 1 minute, 1 hour, 36 minutes. Thanks a lot if anyone's been on from the beginning. If you've been passing in and out, hi to you. If you just jumped on, this is a Congress, what you could acknowledge, an acknowledgement that they're trying to get a U.A.P task force together, and they're talking about all the dimensions and all the red tape and all the crap. And in some ways it's satisfying, in many ways it's not. We're just running through a little bit of it. Now it's getting to the crispy bit, really, where they're getting kind of cross-examined and they're kind of getting caught short in many ways with what they're saying. So I'm going to try and get back to it for a short while.
Military, but are there any non-military reports coming forward of similar events, or is it all coming from military?
The UAP Task Force has a very good working relationship with the FAA. They have very good working relationship with other parts of the U.S. government so that we can ingest reports from
Do we have
from
any
those sources.
reports non-military?
Yes.
Thank you. That's my question. And do we need to put out protocol for civilians that may be in that arena, like through FAA? Do you think that would be appropriate and helpful?
I think standardized reporting, without a doubt, is key to helping us get to ascertain what some of these are.
I think it would be important as well. Do we, there are other people besides the U.S. that have had these experiences and reported them? Is that correct?
There are, that's correct.
Come on, this is the lame bit now. Are you being serious? Are you actually being serious, dude? Name your bleeding country. And there's many countries that are way more open on what they've experienced and the studies than Britain or America. Way more. Brazil, Russia. You know, we can all take it with a pinch of salt if you want. Chile. I think Chile at one point was put down as the most U.F.O reported place on the planet. Chilean government, you talk to them, they're not holding back. They'll tell you exactly what they think. And look at this, the song and dance to try and get anything, you know?
Is it all of our allies, or is it allies and adversaries? What have we learned publicly?
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Well, that goes to my next question. Publicly, have others made anything which would not have to be considered closed? I don't want you to answer what they've said necessarily.
Allies have seen these. China has established its own version of a UAP task force, so clearly a number of countries have observations of things in the airspace that they can't identify.
And do we share data with some, with all? Are they sharing with us?
We share data with some, and some share data with us.
You lying son of a gun. You know what it's like. You know what it's like. You know the tensions between the two countries. You know how they can't trust each other. These could not be a married couple, because they would never get to sleep at night, because they would be sleeping with their eyes open facing each other, wouldn't they? So when he's like some and some and some, yeah, they know even they're that paranoid about each other that whatever information that they receive, they would ultimately think, well, they're only doing this because they want us to think A, B, and C. And once you've got a relationship like that, it's really difficult to get any kind of truth now, any collaboration, you know what I mean? Any compromise with that. How do you work with that situation? And there might be reasons why that's happened, But I will guarantee that there will be reasons on both levels why that's happened, why both countries can't trust one another now. So, with such a highly sensitive subject, do you really think that they're passing over information and they're not scrutinising it and we're scrutinising it and not believing it and think they're trying to fucking throw us over in that direction and there. So, and this is what they do when they create narratives about people. You know what I mean? Creates tensions.
But not necessarily all that have publicly reported something?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think that's an important thing, and for the other session, actually, that we don't discuss that now, because, you know, obviously, something like this can be a national security challenge for us, no doubt about it. If
They're off again. National security, so everything clamps down, and that's what I mean. So how can you pass around information if you're going to keep thinking that? And I get it on many levels, but this is the climate that these guys have created anyway. Wanting to be the big top dog and then fucking espionage and spying and doing all kinds of shit. And I'm talking about all parties concerned. I'm talking about humanity here that needs to know what the fuck could go on in and what these are. Don't be talking about this political party shite between countries and how you don't trust one another. Seriously? Is anyone here at this point thinking of what Ronald Reagan said? Is anyone aligning that train of thought? That no matter what we felt about each other as individual nations, that'd all be gone if we was to discover there was an alien presence. Now people might say he wasn't talking about that. Many people say that's exactly. And if you look at it as such, two people having an argument on a street corner, right? You get a certain element of an alien body. I don't mean an alien as such, as in a foreigner or a policeman or whatever, does some brutalizing stuff. You guarantee there'll be more cohesion between them two. They'll forget the argument because they'll realize, what are we fighting over? We've got a common threat now. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that we want this common threat to be acknowledged, they're using all this geopolitical shit to say this is why we can never get there. And this is what knocks me sick. Oh, there you go.
developed by an adversary through some breakthrough technology, they can be very disruptive to our military actions, or at least serve as a distraction. So my caution would be careful who we share our data with, and don't necessarily trust some of the data we may get from someone else.
Boom. So where the fuck does that leave you then?
And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Himes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the objectives of this open hearing is to try to erode some of the stigma that attaches to, in particular, our military men and women reporting this. It's obviously really very serious because should one of our adversaries have developed a technology that we don't know about it, we need to know about it yesterday. And obviously, any sort of stigma that prevents our military from reporting this data as comprehensively as possible is a national security threat. So I really just have two questions in the service of that goal. The first is, the chairman asked that we run that video again. Most people, when they see a video, we're all used to seeing things from a car, seeing things from a sidewalk. Very few people have the experience of observing something through night vision goggles at Mach 1.5. So just talk for a minute about, if you would, whichever of you is most appropriate, how radically different observation is at high speed and 3-dimension than it is for most of us who walk around and drive cars.
So the first thing I think that's important to note about this is there are lots of things when you are moving very fast and an object.
That's a lame question, just for the record. Now he's just going to pump you with shit for the next 2 minutes. But that's just my opinion.
is between you and a stationary reference point like the ground. It gives a lot of different impressions about how quickly something is or isn't moving. And it actually means that it is a challenge, especially with narrative-based data, to get a lot of information on that. That's why the sensor data is so important, because things do happen very quickly, as you see there. And sometimes things that happen very quickly, something may be moving very slow. That aircraft is moving quite fast. How fast that object is moving that goes by is probably very slow.
So I guess my point is that an observation, either a visual observation or a electronic observation, infrared or whatever, looks radically different than it does to most people. Even instruments are on gimbals and that sort of thing, so that creates a very unusual view to, again, those of us who are used to seeing things in 2 dimensions largely. And
What the fuck? Is he going to ask anything of fucking interest here at this point? I'm sorry, but you've got your moment here, dude.
second question, I think, Mr. Bray, you said something that I want to unpack a little bit. A number of these UAPs, you said, we can't explain. Again, in the service of sort of reducing speculation and conspiracy theories, we can't explain can range from a visual observation that was distant on a foggy night, we don't know what it is, to we've found an organic material that we can't identify, right? Those are radically different worlds. So when you say we can't explain, give the public a little bit better sense of where on that spectrum of we can't explain we are. Are we holding materials, organic or inorganic, that we don't know about? Are we, picking up emanations that are something other than light or infrared that could be deemed to be communications? Give us a sense for what you mean when you say we can't explain.
Sure. When I say we can't explain, I mean exactly as you described there, that there is a lot of information, like the video that we showed, in which there's simply too little data to create a reasonable explanation. There are a small handful of cases in which we have more data that our analysis simply hasn't been able to fully pull together a picture of what happened. And those are the cases where we talk about where we see some indications of flight characteristics or signature management that are not what we had expected. When it comes to material that we have no material. We have detected no emanations within the UAP task force that would suggest it's anything non-terrestrial in origin. So there's, when I say unexplained, I mean everything from too little data to the data that we have doesn't point us towards an explanation, but we'll go wherever the data takes us. Again, we've made no assumptions about what this is or isn't. We're committed to understanding these, and so we'll go wherever that data takes us.
Okay, okay. So when you get an admission from the DoD that they back-engineered an alien spacecraft, this was a legitimate article that was released. If they've admitted to that, then surely this man's answer is somewhat incorrect. Because not only we're talking about possible organic, but we're talking about technology. We're discounting all other theories that it could be. So is he saying that we have never had a crashed aircraft, spacecraft, multidimensional craft, whatever, ever? Has there never, ever been any retrieval of its equipment or possible bodies, entities that were flying it? Has that never ever happened anywhere on the earth, or at least prominently to America? But even he can't recall from this element now, he can't say, well, there might have been a summit that went down in Brazil 20 years ago. I don't know. To him, nothing. And I don't know whether we should actually buy that, do you?
Thank you. That's very helpful, and so I think it bears emphasis. When you say we can't explain, everything that you can't explain is in a bucket called data. Is that correct? And that would mean data collected by sensors, visual observations, everything that we can't explain, quote unquote, is in a bucket called data.
Right. A narrative report from the early 2000s, if it just had a little bit of information on it, would be in our database and it would be unresolved.
I would add to that, it's insufficient data. I mean, that's one of the challenges we have. Insufficient data either on the event itself, the object itself, or insufficient data or plug-in with some other organization or agency that may have had something in that space at that time.
Right, I'm going to get going here at this point, guys, but can you ever get sufficient data for something that you cannot understand and possibly technologically far supersedes anything that you have? Can you? And if you can, have you got an obligation to show it to people? Is that in itself a risk to security, knowing that you possibly are telling people that are things that are coming in and out of your airspace that technologically far supersedes anything we've got? And if you think about catching them, detecting them, then forget it. We may hope that every now and then we may be able to retrieve a crash one, or there may be more to the story. This may be something that is known on a higher level that happens and somehow overlooked anyway. Expansive, more than definitely with a full watch of this, but I must admit, maybe do a bit of housework in between because it'll get interesting. But I just wanted to cover that. I'm sorry I couldn't get to the end of it, but it is getting rather late and we're hitting like the 2-hour mark, so I have been about. I'm sorry to guys if you've just jumped on now and I'm actually jumping off. I'm hoping I will be back on Sunday. This Sunday I'm going to be talking to Janaea. Hopefully we'll have Janaea on. Janaea would like to talk, and I've got an opinion on what has been going on in Hull. So we'd like to talk about that a little bit, talk about what Janaea's been up to, where she's at with her personal life, with work, with everything kind of combined, and hopefully have a bit of a giggle as well. Thank you to everyone that's jumped on. Thanks to all the known affiliates, Children's Matter.news, Katie Jane Swallow, all the rest of them. Thanks to all the regulars, my crown jewels, for all your kind of engagement on this. Please like and share. Like I say, we will be back sometime Sunday evening. Okay, all things going well. So with that, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you. Stay blessed, stay safe, stay alert. Love you all, even the pissing haters.
I love you. 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 I love you.
Even the pissing haters.
I love you. 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 I love you.